live now, so all your advocating for illegal activity can stop now. Just kidding. I know you wouldn't do that. Um, as I told people, this is the last podcast at this studio because I'm moving, and next week we'll be at
Oh,
a new
nice,
place.
nice. I just put some colorful lights on my basement, so it looks like a cool studio, but still the basement here by the furnace.
Yeah, I'll have to actually do a better job of like fixing my place up. But yeah, the last time here, this is because this is an apartment here. And there's only so much I can change without like making the landlord pissed off. But at the new place, I mean, I already there was hundreds of nails and screws in the walls for some reason. I'd already took out, and I'm like putting the drywall on and painting and like doing all this work, so I can do whatever I want. So
Nice.
it'll be a cool studio. I get to just do anything. All right, looks like we're live. Someone's viewing on Odysee. Um, Anyone viewing on YouTube yet? Fulagi Johnson says, "Hey, Joel and Rodrix. Hey, hey, hey." Yeah, we'll give it a couple more minutes to get started on this stuff. But yeah, it's been a the world never sleeps. The crypto world never sleeps. I don't know if you saw Naomi put at she was on she had her show on CoinDesk that she was doing that and one of her segments there she posited that the crypto bear market was never really going might not really come this time. And I don't know if I agree with her on that, but it's an interesting thought because she says that there's so many like mass adoption things happening right now. Not only all the mass adoption things, but then all the financial censorships happening at the same time as well. So there's a possibility we'll just kind of have a slow growth or a flat growth period instead of like a bear market crash. And I like that idea. I love for stuff not to dump, but typically we've had bear markets, so I'm ready for that anyway.
Well, I think everybody that was expecting a stock to flow model to hit
Mm-hmm.
$128,000 in December got a slap in the face saying
Yeah.
Bitcoin's here to rewrite all the economic rules. Nobody knows price prediction if it's gonna go up or down. And this was a big example
Yeah.
because majority of people on Twitter, including me, I was like, oh man, I hope this guy is right. I want to see Bitcoin that high.
Yeah.
But it came out that there was a bigger factors that after a double top at 69, we're still struggling to go over 42,000, 41,000.
Mm-hmm.
And it is what it is. We're expecting more growth. But again, this time, Joel, look from 2016, 17, we have Bitcoin on a presidential level talk now, high corporations, and I,
Mm-hmm.
I, I think as well. I don't think we gotta see a major bear market like we saw in the past, but
Mm-hmm.
I expect a lot of volatility as well still in Bitcoin.
Yeah, I really can't wait until we have relatively low volatility. Like, I mean, over 5 years, if the price of major tokens doubles, that's still pretty good. Like, I don't need it to be double in 24 hours. I don't need those crazy days of the. It's like as much as one likes to make a bunch of money and stuff, and it's just hard to get newbies involved because it goes up so much, and then it's just like when the price is going crazy, it's hard to get people to use it because they're like, well, I don't know, what's going on, and then it crashes, and then they won't sell, and it's just like I wish it would just be more kind of like a slow growth on the way up so people could get interested in it. But anyway, this is probably a good time to run the official intro. Yeah, I'll run that and then we'll get going. So, hey everyone, happy Friday once again. I'm joined by the one and only Rodrix Digital. How's it going, man?
Good to be here. Thanks again for the invitation. Let's talk crypto.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get started on all that stuff, always a reminder: like, comment, share, subscribe, throw some stuff into the live chat. You can also watch on Odysee if you. It's in the description of this video if you want to do a less censored kind of version of this kind of stuff. Cointr.ee/the desert links to get to my coin tree. Do the live super chat thing there. In a few weeks or a couple months, or I can't figure out, whenever I get around to it, I'm gonna do a channel overhaul and start adding more things like selling some NFTs, so you can just buy an NFT and then you just get into the super chat permanently, which would be a lot nicer than just having to like mess with Cointree all the time. So let us get going. So first off, I just, because you were might as well jump around a little bit, because you're talking about THORChain earlier. We were talking about the THORChain and the synths and all that kind of stuff. So for those who, I believe I talked about this last week on the podcast, but THORChain just activated synths, or synthetic assets, and it is basically what a. I'm just going to explain what it is real quick before hitting like the news items on this stuff. So with THORChain, you can, when you deposit liquidity, so you can trade on this decentralized exchange. Like if I deposit like $100 of Bitcoin, 50 of that, half of it gets automatically converted to Rune, the native THORChain token, and then it kind of balances out there. And so if the price of Bitcoin spikes, half of it gets converted to Rune, so it's always 50-50, etc. And so if you have liquidity in a pool, you get a percentage of all the trading fees that happen. And so obviously you usually make money, right? Because let's just say you get 20% APY on Bitcoin trading. Usually you make money. Sometimes though, like the price of Rune dumps too much or whatever, and then you kind of, you might lose money in a short term or something. But anyway, there's volatility there. A synthetic asset is it's kind of like a native Rune token that represents just one of those two assets. So for example, if I want to just have Bitcoin and I don't want to expose myself to Rune at all, I can deposit $100 of Bitcoin into the pool, and then they mint me a synthetic asset that represents $100 of Bitcoin. So now it's like a wrap, almost like a wrapping process. But so because THORChain is a cross-chain DEX, each transaction you have to pay their network fees. So if I spend like $5 on a Bitcoin transaction every time I want to swap, that adds up. But if I just put all my Bitcoin in and mint a synthetic asset, I can trade it really fast with very low fees because it's on the THORChain network, even though it's backed by the pool and represented with an actual Bitcoin number. So it's basically the equivalent of depositing on a centralized exchange and then just trading your Bitcoin back and forth with other tokens, no fee, or very low fees instantly. It's the same kind of thing, except in a decentralized way. That's like the base of it. What I'm really excited for in the future is when they start adding Thor savings, where, for example, let's say you can get 23% APY or whatever on the Bitcoin pool, but it fluctuates, and then your Rune might go up and down. Who knows what your profit is? With this, you could get a synthetic Bitcoin, and then get like let's just say a 10% flat rate interest on that. So then you deposit your Bitcoin, and then you get 10% only in Bitcoin. You're only exposed to Bitcoin, and it's a flat rate. And then the pool operators who don't, have the synthetics, they issue it to you. They're the ones who take on the risk of maybe losing money on giving you that. But also, if they make 23%, they take the 13 and they just give you the 10. So it allows for like a decentralized savings account and stuff, and a bunch of other stuff. So it's a really exciting kind of technology. It really makes this into like a polished trader's experience, except, in a completely decentralized way.
Yeah, no, definitely. THORChain is it's a very complicated, very complex
Mm-hmm.
system they are implementing. Even just the fact of providing liquidity in just Rune or just Bitcoin or both. But as you mentioned, the division is 50-50 once you generate the smart contract from your wallet and you add the liquidity to the pool.
Mm-hmm.
But they also have a system of 100 days in permanent loss, where you don't actually lose your money, which is
Mm-hmm.
some sort of insurance on your deposit. I mean, we don't
Yeah,
have even this on a centralized exchange, and they're building this on a decentralized exchange. It's definitely one of
it's
the
exciting.
projects that I've been very impressed since I
Mm-hmm.
heard about it while being part of the diff. Hyden was the one who mentioned to us at the diff, and if I'm not wrong, I think Dash is the next one to be implemented. I think Luna is gonna be implemented at THORChain this week, and
Yeah,
I think that is the next one on the pipeline. So
yeah. Hopefully. So for the basically, in order to get on THORChain, which you have one thing you have to do is either the THORChain developers have to do it, or more commonly, the communities themselves have to do this, have to actually write the code to the implementation. And so the code's been done for at least a month, I think, for Dash. The problem was, I don't think the THORChain developers wanted to merge the code until it was in official Dash repos. And so they were going back and forth with the Dash core team, the THORChain Dash developer, until they finally managed to, I believe, come to an agreement. And I think it was like 2 days ago they merged it into the official Dash repo. So it should be good to go now. And so Luna's like first, for very obvious reasons. It's a big, exciting ecosystem. And then it's probably Dash and Decred, probably at the same time or very similar, like very soon, and maybe a Zcash after that. I don't know. And then they're working on a whole bunch of other cool things. But I can't wait for Dash to be on it. And as I've mentioned before, because Dash you can stake in masternodes, right? You can have 1,000 Dash and run a masternode and get a return on that. And because you can use CrowdNode, which is a centralized but like a fractional masternode system, because there's competition for that, there's a certain point at which not everyone's going to be putting liquidity into THORChain to try to make money off of that. There's a certain point where those are going to be competing with each other. So I think that both are going to be higher than they otherwise would be. Like uh, Dash is going to have, like, masternodes are going to get paid more than similar setups of coins that aren't on THORChain. And liquidity providers are going to probably be paid more for Dash than they would be on other ones. But as far as this story thing here, so there's a tweet from Zook, or StreamUST is his handle on Twitter. It says, since the introduction of synths, Bitcoin swap volumes have dramatically increased on THORChain. Today, the majority of Bitcoin swaps use synthetic Bitcoin. And he shows a little chart here about with like the how much of the trading depth was on that. So no surprise, huh? If people don't want to spend like a couple dollars on a fee, and they don't want to wait 10, 20, 30 minutes for a trade to happen, they use off-chain scaling solutions for Bitcoin to do all their Bitcoin trading. It definitely makes sense, but it's kind of cool that, like, first off, it shows that it's not just a theoretically good technology. It shows that synths are actually valuable, that people really want to use them. There's a market demand for it instantly. At the same time, it also shows that, Bitcoin on its own, not good enough. People want off-chain scale. They want to scale Bitcoin, and largely off-chain is the way Bitcoin is scaled. And largely, it's not been things like Lightning. It's been other chains and things like that.
Yeah, well, it's been the battle, this battle for off-chain scalability, on-chain scalability, Lightning Network. It's been going on for what, 5 years now?
Yeah.
Or 4 years?
Mm-hmm.
We see the numbers of the Lightning Network growing, but
It's not a.
again, the hassle of opening a Lightning channel,
Mm-hmm.
trying to deposit money, and having a wallet that is compatible. And one of the examples was when we were there in El Salvador, trying to pay with the Lightning wallets that didn't really talk. And I'm not technical enough to understand the depth of the problems,
Mm-hmm.
but they were not compatible, a couple systems, and we made a couple payments in a fast food restaurant that didn't go through for hours.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot explain why, but now I see that with this implementation of more and more chains on THORChain and the creation of Sphinx as well,
Mm-hmm.
this project itself is going to bring so much liquidity within a
Mm-hmm.
THORChain.
Yeah.
It's gonna be impressive to see a decentralized exchange, which decentralized we say, but of course, every often they a group of nodes decided to pause the operations just to make sure there's no bugs in the smart contracts that will allow people to withdraw money, or in this case, hackers like they had in the past.
Yeah.
Uh,
And that's something I should add to this thing is um as far as I know, as of right now, it could have been in the last couple hours changed, but the THORChain network is paused because there was some sort of a bug that was discovered uh, that basically they had to that was related to the implementation of this synthetics, right? So let me just see what Chad Barraford, who was I guess the lead developer of THORChain, now he just calls himself a developer, and at some point he's going to step away, whatever. But the big cheese, THORChain, said the THORChain network ran into a bug that caused the network to stop being able to produce blocks. All funds are safe. Core devs found the issue and released a patch to fix it, which is just awaiting node operators to adopt it, and the network should naturally resume. The bug was related to synthetics, which was recently enabled by the community after audits and several rounds of testing. Apparently not enough rounds of testing, but THORChain moves fast. And that's the thing is I provide some liquidity on THORChain. I've used it. I'm having a great time, but I count that all as like, gambling money at this point. I mean, for someone who's already all in crypto, I guess my whole life is gambling. But I'm just saying, like, for that part, uh, stuff is gonna break and things aren't gonna work, and that's all right for me. Just buyer beware. If you, it's not like you're using something that's like super polished and is going to work excellently. Like, be prepared for weird things like this if you're going to use THORChain. It's not even mainnet yet, so there you
I was
go.
gonna say that they're not even on mainnet yet. That's basically
Mm-hmm.
the beta, and it's been working pretty much flawless, except the hack that they had last year, which was on the Ethereum smart contract. Was not even on their Cosmos SDK smart contracts, but which brought the price down. I think, if I was not wrong, from $10 to $3 something. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm very impressed how the development of this decentralized exchange is happening, and the amount of chains they're connecting. It's being very, very fast.
Mm-hmm. And I should say also, like, some of these things, like the APYs you can get on some of these things, are pretty insane. So, like, I'm providing liquidity for a little bit of BUSD, the Binance stablecoin, and because I was like, might as well hedge something with a stablecoin, try this out, and also at the time it was like 30 or 40% APY, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty good. Like, even if there's volatility on the THORChain side, I'm still gonna do pretty well. And then, like, as of yesterday, it was like 84% APY. Like, it's been crazy. It's some of that. A lot of that is because there's been a ton of volume on THORChain with that. Some of it's also because people don't have a ton of liquidity in there. But I mean, it's done, like, the very small amount that I put in just to like play around with it has already in it was like 45, 50 days ago or so, like under 2 months ago, and it's already 50% more valuable. A lot of it based on the fees I've gotten, but a lot of it just based on Rune going up too. And it's just like, man, this is interesting stuff. And like, can you imagine if you make like an average of 50 or 60% at the end of the year? It's just like, wow. And then that compounds. It's just like, that's crazy.
Yeah, especially if your main investment is coming from a stable coin, which is a very,
Mm-hmm.
let's say, a very secure way to invest. We
Yeah.
have examples as well of inside the Terra platform, the wallet. You can stake
Mm-hmm.
UST, the
Mm-hmm.
Luna stable coin, inside Anchor Protocol, and they're paying 20% a year
Mm-hmm.
APY, just for literally for you to leave the money sitting in the wallet. There's no other, fixed rate investments that pays this in a very safe way. Again, even though everything is through a smart contract, it's not like in the example of a masternode system where the funds are in your wallet. You
Mm-hmm.
are believing and you're trusting the functionality of the smart contracts that you will be able to retrieve that money back and that the
Yeah.
money will be there in the platform. So you have to cross your fingers every time to make sure the developers did good. And we've seen this every week. There's a new DAO, a new dot finance that the developers put out a statement. Unfortunately, guys, all the funds are gone. It was nice while it last. Thank you. See you guys later. We got hacked. This
Yeah,
happens every week.
um which should it kind of rolls into the next story, right? Coinbase wallet adds support for Solana. Coinbase has added support for Solana and Solana-based tokens. It outlined that it will look to support NFTs and dApps on the blockchain in the future too. I mean, that's just like a Solana. Like Solana seems to be moving along, getting a lot of steam. At the same time, did they just lose like an assload of money not too long ago for like the 8th time? Like there was some. Let me find
Yeah.
the story on the hack, but it was pretty crazy.
I think it was. I think the last hack was between a bridge Solana had with another chain. They hack
Yeah.
actually the bridge, not the Solana itself, but still. I haven't really got into Solana reading or understanding much, especially after all the amount of
Yeah.
DDoS or whatever type of hack that they install they did on the network. In my point of
Mm-hmm.
view, the project grew too fast, too big, and
Yeah.
scaling management is hard. Scaling the team of developers is extremely hard.
Mm-hmm.
Scaling the verification of every single step of smart contracts are extremely hard. And the project got what, $50 billion last year? It's insane. And the amount of attacks, this happens on every single project, but they're not
Mm-hmm.
successful. And at Solana, they've been very successful. And this got me worried. And even when we do our lives technical analysis, we always tell people, be very aware of Solana, be very careful. There's a lot of things still, that needs to be settled before you put a large amount of money into a project.
Yeah. It's like the slot machine. Just pull a lever and see what happens. I mean, I'm a little like I'm a Solana to me is what 2017's IOTA was. Because IOTA was the giant hype train with just so much stuff behind it, all this money, everyone's thinking it's doing everything. But just they didn't like I'm not going to criticize today's IOTA because I mean I've kind of kept up with it, but like back in the day, they did a lot of stuff that, in my opinion, was frankly sloppy. Like they didn't lock things down well enough. They didn't think things through enough, and there was a lot of exploits and problems. And like, for example, about the 98,000 Ethereum was stolen on Solana, and the so this is what happened according to this post I saw on Reddit. So to create wrapped ETH on the chain, Solana checks if there's a valid signature and that signature comes from a guardian. So that's two. So proper usage means that there is a valid signature and it is from a guardian. So it checks those two things. And if those two match, the request is approved. Now, if it's a valid signature but not from a guardian, it's rejected. If it's not a valid signature from a guardian, it's rejected. But if it's not a valid signature from not a guardian, the double negative makes a positive and you get the money. Like, what the hell? Like, that seems really stupid. Like, it's a basic logic problem they didn't, like, figure out. Like, I mean, I couldn't do better, let's be honest. I'm not a coder. But this is still a little ridiculous for that much money. I mean, how many more billions would you have to throw at this before they don't make that mistake?
Yeah, that was my main topic of conversation. Once we did a
Mm-hmm.
couple analysis on Solana with the trader that we do our lives daily in the channel.
Yeah.
Uh, it was it's as you mentioned a perfect example. IOTA, it was the blockchain that's gonna connect my watch to my toaster to my car to my refrigerator on the Internet of Things, and everything's gotta talk. And
Mm-hmm.
as I said to people in the past, I, I because I'm a video editor for many years, I got into Apple computers, so I have everything Apple products.
Mm-hmm.
So my iPhone still have problems talking to my Apple Watch, and it's made
Mm-hmm.
by the same company with the same software by the same engineers or whatever group, and they
Yeah.
still have problems of communicating. Can you imagine IOTA promising is gonna connect everything on the Internet of Things and make everything talk with the same language? maybe it's gonna happen, but in 50 years, and that's the hype. People, they read something and inside their head is extremely fast and it makes sense, but reality is a slap in the face. It doesn't
Yeah.
happen as fast. Scalability is an issue. We've seen how many years the Bitcoin community has been fighting and arguing about the scalability and SegWit and SegWit 2.2 and SegWit whatever. It's a big topic.
Hmm.
Growing is the goal, but nobody knows how to do this as fast as they want.
Yeah, and that's the obviously everything's new, and the newer the technology, the more problems come up with it before you get something good. But there were some basic things, like let's just take the IOTA example because I know it a little bit more because I'm a little bit older in crypto than like all these new things. But like, first off, they had this revolutionary new like tangle instead of a blockchain where each transaction build off of others and all this kind of stuff rather than like a central consensus thing.
Didn't
It
they switch out of Tango to another system?
Well, here's what they did. So they started with just a tangle, and then they realized that at some point there would be, even in this system, there would be consensus issues. Like there would be disagreements on what was the final state. So they were just saying like, no, and everything else, you need like a majority hash rate, or we need something to determine like the blockchain, like the way consensus goes. We don't need to do that, man. But then they did need to do that, so they got a coordinator, which is a centralized node that just was the final authority on everything, kind of invalidating the entire reason for that. And then the other thing, they're like, man, we can do yeah, I'm sorry if I sound like disrespectful by saying man every time, but like they're just like, we don't need fees. Like, you don't need people to pay for things. And that's like, you didn't read like the Bitcoin white paper, any of that stuff. The reason why, like, people don't like to pay fees, but there's a reason for them. And they're just like, it'll be okay. And then someone crashed the network by just spamming a million messages, a million transactions that just had the message coordinator sucks in the thing just to troll them. And like, oh, we got to figure something out. Like, that's like really dumb things. And now I don't remember exactly, they're finding a way to get rid of the coordinator and have a decentralized mechanism. I don't know where that is these days. But as far as the fee thing, they introduced a fee type of a thing where if you stake IOTA, you get mana, which is like, it's basically like you get transaction fees that you can then spend on transactions. But unlike just like a proof of stake model, the mana rots over time. And so it can only be, you basically have to be staking enough IOTA in order to get resources and then do that, which I think that's what the Wax blockchain does, is something similar. And even then, Wax, I believe, is the most used blockchain right now. It has like 30, 40 million transactions a day, but they're hitting some scaling issues now. And it's just like this stuff is harder than you think. And just the thing with IOTA in the beginning was just the arrogance of it. There's a lot of people who are just super arrogant about it, like, yeah, everything better than everyone, and then it all fails. And then now they're like humble and being like, well, all right, well, let's do it the right way. And I wish
Yeah,
them luck with all that.
I think the same thing happened to Nano, which was a
Um,
blockchain with no fees, and then they put some sort of a DDoS attack, or millions of
mm,
transactions running because there was no fee to incentivize master nodes
yeah.
or miners, and they ended up crashing the whole blockchain for a while. And then now I think they built a new system to prevent that.
Yeah, and I haven't checked up on that lately. I do remember when that was going on, and it again, another thing, like one of their anti-spam thing was you have to do a little bit of proof of work to send. You have to do a little bit of mining to send your transactions. And unfortunately, it just wasn't enough to stop someone from just running a slow grade miner and just spamming everything out. And there is some delegated proof of work stuff where it's feeless, but there are some services that you can pay that will do your work for you to process your transactions. So there's kind of like fees anyway. It's just that's one thing that, like, I don't want to be too much of a crypto boomer, but there's a reason why like Bitcoin, as old as it is and as little as it's changed, is still around, because the base economic model of Bitcoin, it's not perfect, but it works really well in a lot of ways. And that's why, I think that a lot of the best coins and projects have been based off of Bitcoin. They took that basic thing and decided to improve on it or attempt to or diverge. But just the basic model, like Satoshi was a genius, not Craig Wright, but Satoshi was a genius. And there's just a lot of people that are trying to be that level of genius right away without building on too much prior work, and they're not getting there.
Yeah, one of the blockchains as well that is 100% centralized and patent is Hedera Hashgraph, and they use with a different system. I read this a while back. It was founded by a bunch of professors from MIT, if I'm not wrong. And they have a couple of corporations behind the project, and it's just basically a centralized blockchain enterprise, and it's part of the protocol wars that we're going through. Every group, every developer, every corporation is creating their own system, and in the end, everybody's got to try to connect to a bigger chain that has more value, and all roads lead to Bitcoin.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where the more I learn about like alternative consensus protocols, the more I don't want to go away from proof of work entirely. I do like hybrid systems. I do understand that proof of work is very expensive for what you get, but there's some things that, like, for example, without proof of work, as far as I know, every other system, when you bootstrap a node, you have to get the current state of the network from other nodes. So if if it starts with one node and then they control, like, they can give you an incorrect snapshot if the node number 2 comes online of like the state of the network and the blockchain. It's like only proof of work can get you an accurate decentralized bootstrap of everything. There's a few things like that are just like, do we really need to get rid of this so badly? Like, but I don't know. People always there's room for lots of blockchains, but
that's the time that I regret not being a developer or understand deeply. I have my limitations or how far I can understand development and coding. But for the point what I read, yes, proof of work is gonna be around for a long time. Even they have some other system in proof of stakes and other types of consensus mechanism. I think it'll take time and we can see Ethereum have been struggling to move to a proof of work. Ada Cardano has been struggling to deliver what they promised as well 3 years ago about having a faster blockchain with cheaper fees, 100% proof of stake like Ethereum, and that's what they still are.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I think a lot of people, and this is very obvious because of the stage we're in for crypto development, right? This is still very early. There hasn't been crypto except for like 10, 12, 13 years, however long it's been. It's not been very long. And there's just a lot of things that a lot of like, as I should say, like golden rules that people haven't figured out yet. They haven't decided on. Like, for example, you can't scale infinitely. You kind of can, but there's trade-offs. You can't, like, you're going to have to start pruning the network. You can't keep all transactions. You have to have a more centralized system if you want to do this much, or you have to separate the data. And it's kind of funny how you start to see some things like you either have to have like a proof of work where like big mining farms control, like keep the thing secure, or you have to have big pots of money, like stakers control, or some hybrid of both. And then also, as far as I know, almost every network that's working, like you're starting to see like a two plus chain solution, or where Bitcoin is putting major financial transfers on layer 1, and then layer 2 is smaller payments and data and everything. Bitcoin Cash is doing payments, everything, layer 1, and then all data smart contracts is layer 2 or smart BCH. And then you have, Dash, payments, everything, layer 1, and then platform chain for all like data operations, state transitions, and stuff like that. And it just goes on and on. And even Ethereum is just like big things layer one, and then almost everything else is on L2s, like various L2s. And it's like we're starting to see how like reality is coming together. Of course, then if you're in BSV, then reality doesn't come together, and you just throw everything on the blockchain, and eventually, that doesn't work. But we're starting to see that there's limitations on like scaling, and so you want to have like an ironclad layer one that is super auditable, works really well, but then all the other fancy stuff is on like a different chain. We're starting to see these like rules that everyone thought they could just disobey before, but these rules are starting to like become apparent over time. People are figuring them out.
And you mentioned Bitcoin Cash. I haven't heard about Bitcoin Cash in a while as well. What's happening with the community and implementations, developments? It's something that it's been off my radar for a while.
Yeah, I haven't seen much of what has happened in the usual sphere of things. I know that there's still people working at getting adoption, but the big innovation they've been kind of touting is something called Smart BCH, which is a sidechain. It's a sidechain smart. Basically, think of it as Binance Smart Chain, right? It's like a fast Ethereum killer type thing that you need to have. You need to have like Bitcoin Cash hash rate in order to run one of these nodes, and they burn Bitcoin Cash for fees. So it's kind of like it's kind of a whole different blockchain built on top of that, and it's the same old stuff where you have like your swap things, your liquidity providing, your smart contracts as an EVM compatible EVM compatible. It works on Tendermint consensus, I believe, and it's like a bunch of other stuff. So yeah, it's basically everyone's kind of, that's the other thing, is like everyone is starting to do smart contracts. You need smart contracts in DeFi and stuff and NFTs, or no one cares about you. And just like, I remember like people still ask about like the privacy coin. What's the best privacy coin? I'm like, what the hell is a privacy coin? Like, what the hell is a security coin? What is a scalability coin? It's like, these are all aspects that anything that worth a damn, people are going to need. Like, it still blows my mind that Ethereum has basically zero privacy. Like, if you buy an NFT from someone, you can just see how much money they have. Like, I'm not just saying with chain analysis. You can just literally open up with the block explorer as a moron and be like, oh, look, this is all their shit. I should rob them. Like, I don't understand how people haven't like figured that this is a huge problem, but they will. Eventually, you'll need privacy. Every network will need to scale. Every network will need some kind of smart contract capability, and every network will need security. You won't just be like, that chain locks and all that stuff, that's just for those people. We don't need that. It's like, nope, you're gonna get attacked.
Sooner or later, they will find out why those functionalities are extremely important and why for so many years. And this is talking about pre-ICO era. In the beginning, I remember like finding Bitcoin so complicated because the conversations were not about the price or making money. It was about security, scalability, block size, being anonymous, being hard to track. And this faded away. All those topics faded away. And one of the examples you mentioned about Ethereum, that's why all those guys that have been buying those NFT for millions of dollars, they can basically be investigated now for money laundering because they created a shitty NFT and then they put it for sale, and then they go with another address and then buy the NFT from themselves, and now they have an NFT that is worth $1 million plus their $1 million in Ethereum that came back to their own wallet. And on a on-chain solution, you can find out what's happening. And there's some huge investigations now about money laundering for those NFTs. And in the other hand, NFTs are great because there's extremely functionality, especially for blockchain games and other aspects. But there's always some people trying to take advantage of the system, and they don't understand how important it is to have a privacy coin, and why so many conversations were done before this madness of just knowing which project's got to go up 20, 30 times. How can I get a millionaire with NFTs and all that?
Yeah. Well, speaking of NFTs, this might be a good time to roll into this one. $1 million rock NFT sells for a penny in all or nothing era. A simple mistake led one crypto user to sell his precious rock NFT for 444 Wei instead of 444 ETH, a tenth of a penny rather than 1.2 million. And first off, a rock NFT. Okay. It's literally an NFT. Like, I'm just showing, like, from, like, the tweet stuff. It's like a rock. You're selling this one for millions? But, no, you sell it for, 1.2, like a tenth of a penny, which is probably what it's worth, let's be honest. But it's like, goes back to that era. Like, this is how new we are. That, first off, you can easily do that sort of a user error. Like, the stuff isn't usable enough that it just, like, that would never work out. It's like, no, we still have these, like, big growing pains. But also, you're expecting to get 1.2 million from a stupid picture of a rock? Like, what the hell? This is crazy.
Yeah, that's the system that people didn't really understand, how those NFTs are being sold for millions. I just made a little artwork here, and I'm gonna show you guys how this is done, right? So basically, I have here my NFT, right? I just drew this guy, right?
Yeah.
You can tell my drawing skills are amazing.
Yeah, just perfect for the NFT market of today.
Exactly. So I made this NFT. I mint on an Ethereum blockchain, and I put it out for sale for $1 million, right? But this is on my Ether address right here. But I also have another wallet with another Ether address, and guess what? In that wallet, I have also $1 million. So what I do,
or bolivars, whatever.
Yeah, well, this is my money from Venezuela. So what I do is I go ahead and I buy this NFT with my own money, but they're in separate wallets. And now I have an NFT, a shitty NFT that cost $1 million, and I have my $1 million back in another wallet, right? So, and then I can sell my NFT for half a price because, I'm a good guy. So anybody wants to buy this for $500,000, and that's how they're done. It's the new ICO. I don't know, but people believe that they can make millions of dollars doing NFT. There are some great artists. There's some beautiful NFTs, some great artwork being created from serious artists. But once you see, the rock being sold by millions, is the guy buying his own rock and laundering money.
Yeah, and I'm sure that happens in the art world as well a lot. Like, you'll have someone will conspire to hype up some random artist and just be like, oh yeah, this is cool, why don't we do, and then they'll just say, oh, this is a price. Like, some people would argue that, like, Jackson Pollock paintings are not worth anything. I think Pollock paintings are interesting. I do think that they're worth a lot. Like, it's not as random as people see. But, like, for example, the people that put, like, a toilet and they say, call it, like, toilet, and then they sell for millions. Like, that's already dumb. Like, people who are complaining about NFTs, like, where have you been all this time? If you could just put toilet, and there you go.
Remember the banana with duct tape on the wall?
Yeah.
And someone went there and ate the banana. It was all planned.
Yeah. It is pretty crazy. Let me refresh this thing right here. I believe we do have a super chat here real quick. Let me see if it pops up. There we go. From Anonymous says, I understand that Brazil has been close to Russia as part of the BRICS deal. Do you know anything about that relationship in terms of trade/commerce and how it possibly spill into digital cash somehow?
Yeah. Well, so the commercial treaty is called the BRICS, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa.
Okay.
Right? So basically, it's a commercial treaty where those countries buy and sell goods, and they can use their own money. This is bypassing the dollar. This treaty is about 10 years old. The BRICS, they have their own bank, which is located in São Paulo, Brazil, as well. And this was done by the previous administration, which was from the left party in Brazil.
Okay.
Even though it was from the left party, it was a good deal. It's a good deal because you're buying and selling goods. Brazil depends on fertilizers from Russia. That's the main reason why Brazil, the current president, decided to remain neutral on this debate between Russia and Ukraine. But
Hmm.
basically, because if they take the Ukrainian side, Russia might retaliate and not sell fertilizers to Brazil. And if this happens, a third of the planet goes hunger because Brazil produces about 15 to 20% of the food of the planet. And I'm talking
Hmm.
about grains, coffee, soybeans, corn, orange, plus meats and other commodities like that. So it was a smart decision to remain neutral. The BRICS is moving along to have business among themselves using their own money, and a form it's just a form of a way to bypass the dollar and minimize the dollar on the in the world, which is a smart business decision.
Hmm. Yeah, interesting. Well, uh, speaking of Russia on all that stuff, we do have a headline here. Ukraine's largest saving banks halts Bitcoin buys. So, while the Ukrainian government has moved to legalize Bitcoin amid ongoing attacks from the Russian military, which, by the way, shout out to Andre and the Dash Electrum team who are still developing despite being bombed, which is pretty crazy. Uh, some of the largest local banks have reportedly banned their clients from buying Bitcoin using the national currency. Um, for example, Privat Bank, the largest commercial bank in Ukraine, has temporarily restricted its customers from purchasing Bitcoin with the national currency. Um, the industry publication Forklog reported on Thursday. So, what do you make of this? With like, is this just is this something like going back on the previous, I guess, pro crypto bent, or is it just something that has something to do with in this time of crisis and war, they're trying to keep people from fleeing the Ukrainian currency and into something different.
I would compare that what China did by banning mining operations and
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin in China. First of all, we got to understand what China did it in the past 40 years. China moved about 400 million people from the rural area and created an industrial middle class. In the past
Yeah.
40 years, the Chinese developed a extremely strong middle class, a extremely strong upper class, a new class of millionaires and a new class of billionaires.
Mm.
Moving the ban to to the ban of Bitcoin and mining in China, in my point of view, is basically to not allow any person in China who has money to have the option to take the money out of the country
Mm-hmm.
because they're forcing their own citizens, their own currency to stay within China's claws of control.
Mm-hmm.
In a potential crash, as we saw lately about the construction companies in China plummeting and losing 80 to 90% of value, and investors not being able to take off their money and buy crypto. That for me explains why they ban Bitcoin in China, not to allow the citizens to protect their own wealth. And Chinese middle class, upper class, millionaires and billionaires, they created a lot of wealth in the past 40 years. The same thing now with Ukraine. Let's say I'm a bank owner and I have Bitcoin. Why would I sell my Bitcoin for a piece of paper of some Ukrainian money that is about to get evaporated from the financial system with a stroke of a pen? It's a way
Mm-hmm.
for the bank to protect whatever Bitcoin they have, leaving the citizens with their savings with no option in how to protect their wealth.
Yeah. It's kind of funny, like the capital flight kind of thing, because the final headline thing has something to do with that too. The Central Bank of Russia tightens P2P transactions monitoring, including those in crypto. The regulator's recommendation is designed to prevent capital flight amid economic collapse. So, Russia too. It's kind of funny how like the war this I mean, to a lot of the world, I'm sure, who hasn't been actually paying attention, this war kind of seems to come out of nowhere a little bit. But like it's kind of funny how both countries, like Ukraine and Russia, are both not doing very well as a result of this. It's not like anyone's having a great time over there. I mean, even Putin, I don't think is having a great time. Like, and so it's funny because there's a war and both countries, citizens, want out of their terrible economy, but both countries are trying to keep them from doing capital flight. And so it's kind of funny to see this happen where you have some countries like El Salvador deciding to go full on into crypto, and then others just realizing that would kind of destroy their government economy. I really wonder, can you imagine a time when like the US dollar, when the US is trying to prevent people from doing capital flight as well?
Yeah, well, here in the US, I think this wouldn't happen. In Brazil, it happened several times. Actually, in Brazil, you were never allowed to send money from Brazil to abroad during the
Mm-hmm.
70s, the 80s, the 90s. That was actually very, very interesting. One of the events that I did back in 2017, a horse event, one of the I didn't know that, but Brazil breeds one of the most important Arabian horses, right? The horses are worth like
Okay.
$2-3 million. And this old farmer that breeds horses, he was telling that in the 70s, what they had to do in Brazil was they would hire a lawyer to go abroad and open a business in some other country and say, hey, I want you to go to that country and I want you to sue me. And most important, I want to lose 10 million reais or whatever the money was at the time. Because that was the way
Uh,
that they had to move money out of Brazil. So they
it
would
was funny.
find out something wrong inside their company, or they would let that, crack open to
Mm-hmm.
allow for a lawsuit. So this company that they open ashore would come
Mm-hmm.
in and do some small business with them, and then they will find out there was something wrong in the contract, and then this company would sue them, and they would, oh yeah, we lost, we have to pay, and then legally they were allowed to send money abroad because they lost an international lawsuit. I mean, this is the genius
Um,
of the human brain. I think it's
yeah,
phenomenal. They
that
came
kind
up with
of
this.
that kind of reminds me of an example that in the east part of the U.S. you don't see that much of, but in the Southwest you do. There's a lot of undocumented immigrants in Arizona, and they all have jobs, probably a lot of them. And how do you get to your job? You got to drive. Well, how do you drive if you don't have a driver's license? Because you're not, the law says you're not supposed to be here right now. Well, they just roll the dice. But what happens if you get pulled over? Then they impound your car. And if you don't have a license, how do you get your car out? Well, what you do is you go to a title loan shop, and the title loan, you take out a title loan, a loan with your car title as collateral on your car. And then now they have a lien on the car, legal lien, meaning they have the title loan agency now has legal title to the car as, and then they take it, they bring it out of car jail, and then they give it to you. And so they have this like roundabout system for, breaking the undocumented immigrants' cars out of car jail. And it's just like, I guess there's it's not like you can't do everything without the proper documentation. It's you can. It's just an extra cost and an extra service you got to figure out. But it's very much the same thing. It's not like, oh, you can't send money abroad from Brazil. Yeah, you can. You just got to, you got to figure some things
Gotta
out, and then you can do it.
work a little harder, but that's
Yeah.
what's happening. And between the Russian Ukraine war, the
Mm-hmm.
people are losing. The good citizens of Ukraine and the good citizens of Russia. There's a lot of good people on those countries that
Mm-hmm.
have business, a computer store, a bakery, I don't know, a mini supermarket in your neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And those people that have savings that they've been accumulating for the past 3, 5, 10 years, and all of the sudden they have no option except to watch their savings melt in front of their eyes, and they cannot withdraw or buy any type of hard asset, or even gold, and in this case not even Bitcoin. And
Mm-hmm.
whoever loses, it's always the people. It's never the state or the government.
Yeah, and it's never the rich people, or not most of the rich people. The richer and better connected you are, the more options you are to get out of bad situations. It's the poor and ignorant people that always get hurt the most by things like this. Well, this seems like a good time to wrap the thing up. I know you have a hard out. Where could people find more about you and your channel and all the cool stuff that you do?
Well, I don't tweet much. I retweet a lot, but you guys can follow me on Twitter, at Rodrix Digital. as well. And then over there, there's a link to all my social medias, the channels. We have all the Dash channels and Twitter channels in Portuguese as well
Mm-hmm.
for Dash that we have it. And I'm always around, and I'm gonna be actually going to the BitConf in Miami 2022, and also to the ShitConf organized by Ken Bozak. I'm gonna be there in both events. So if anybody's around there, come say hi. I'd love to see you guys there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, everyone, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next week. And next week, the Dash podcast is back, and we have a fun episode planned. So, yeah, see everyone next week.
Bye. Thank you, Joel.